My name is Priya Anand. I'm 29 years old. And the Sunday afternoon, my sister-in-law forwarded a Christmas party invitation to 11 people and did not include me. Was the afternoon I finally understood that being easy to overlook is not the same thing as having nothing to protect. The invitation appeared in my cousin Lakshmi's phone, and Lakshmi, who is 22 and does not always read a room before she forwards things, sent it to me with a single question mark and no other context. The invitation was for Christmas Eve dinner at my grandmother's house, at 14 Corbin Street, Northbrook, Cincinnati, a 3-bedroom craftsman with a corner lot and a side porch that my grandmother had lived in for 31 years. The invitation listed a start time, a dress code, a note about bringing a dish, and the names of 11 family members. My name was not among them. I read it twice. I set my phone face down on my desk. Something moved through me and settled low, the way a door settles into its frame when someone closes it from the other side, a sound more felt than heard, and then quiet. What none of them knew was that I had filed a certified copy of my grandmother's death certificate with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office 14 months earlier, completing the survivorship transfer that had made me the sole owner of 14 Corbin Street. The deed had been prepared years before that. What my brother and his wife had decorated for Christmas was my house. My grandmother's name was Sarala Anand, and she had come to Cincinnati from Pune in 1981 with a master's degree in mathematics and a husband who worked for an aerospace engineering firm in Fairfield. They had moved into the Corbin Street house in 1988, when the neighborhood was quieter and the craftsman bungalows on the corner lots were still selling for prices that a dual-income household with careful savings could reach. My grandfather died in 2009. My grandmother stayed. She was a precise woman, my grandmother, not cold, but organized in the way that people who have navigated immigration paperwork and graduate school applications in a second language tend to become organized. She kept her documents in a fireproof box in the bedroom closet and her financial records in a binder with tabbed sections, and she reviewed her will with her attorney every 3 years with the same regularity that she serviced her car. Her attorney's name was Frances Osei, a woman who had been in practice in Blue Ash for 25 years and who my grandmother had found through a recommendation from her cardiologist's office manager and vetted by calling 3 of her references. My father, my grandmother's only son, was a kind man with a specific weakness, which was that he trusted other people's accounts of situations more than he verified the situations themselves. He lived in Columbus with my mother and my younger brother Rohan, and he visited Cincinnati on holidays and birthdays and whenever my grandmother called him, which was often. Rohan was 32, 3 years older than me, and had married a woman named Divya 6 years earlier. Divya was organized in a different way than my grandmother. She organized people and their standing relative to each other, and she was very good at it, and she had decided early in her marriage that I was a variable to be managed rather than a person to be included. I was not oblivious to this. I was, by professional training and temperament, a careful observer. I worked as a patient services director at a regional hospital network in Cincinnati, a position that required managing 14 staff members, coordinating discharge planning across 3 departments, insurance liaison work, and a significant amount of documentation compliance. I had a supervisor named Hal Brightwell, who called me methodical in my annual reviews, which he meant as a compliment and which I received as one. I was methodical. I tracked things. I kept records. What I had not done, in the 6 years of Divya's management of the family's social architecture, was object to it directly. I had attended the events I was invited to and declined the ones I wasn't, and said very little about the distinction. My grandmother had noticed. She was, as I said, precise. In October 2019, she called me and asked if I could come to Cincinnati on a Saturday. When I arrived, she made tea and sat me down at the kitchen table and told me she had been thinking about the house. She said she had spoken with Frances Osei. She said she wanted the house to stay in the family, by which she meant she wanted the house to stay with the person in the family who would keep it in the way she had kept it, maintained, occupied, not sold in a rush the moment it became inconvenient to hold. She paused, and then she said, "I want that to be you." I asked her if she had talked to my father. She folded her hands on the table. "Your father will do what he thinks is right," she said. "What I am telling you is what I have already decided and what Frances has already drafted." I am not asking for your permission. I am telling you so you know. The instrument was a survivorship deed, technically a joint tenancy, with right of survivorship, with my grandmother as the first joint tenant and me as the second. Under the terms of the deed, if my grandmother predeceased me, full title would pass to me automatically upon recording of the death certificate, with no probate required. Francis Osei prepared the deed in November 2019. My grandmother and I executed it before a notary at Francis's office on a Wednesday afternoon. It was recorded with the Hamilton County Recorder's Office as instrument number 2019-089344 on December 4, 2019. My grandmother did not tell my father. She did not tell Rohan. She told me and Francis Osei and the Hamilton County Recorder's Office and no one else. She died in October 2022 in the house, in the room she had slept in for 34 years. She was 81. She had been declining for several months, and I had been driving from my apartment in Hyde Park to Corbin Street 2 and 3 times a week for the last 4 of those months, helping with groceries, attending her cardiologist appointments with Dr. Meena Pillai at the cardiovascular practice in Mason, managing her prescription refill coordination with a pharmacy, sitting with her in the evenings when she wanted company, and leaving when she wanted quiet. My father came when he could. Rohan came twice. After the memorial, I filed the certified death certificate copy with the Hamilton County Recorder. The transfer processed on December 9, 2022. Owner of record, Priya Kavitha Anand. I received the updated title documentation from Francis Osei's office by mail and placed it in the fireproof box I had bought to replace my grandmother's, which I had moved from the bedroom closet to my own apartment. I did not announce this. My grandmother had not announced it. The county recorder's office had the record. That was the record that mattered. For the following 14 months, I maintained the Corbin Street house the way my grandmother had maintained it. Property taxes filed on time, the furnace serviced in October, the gutters cleaned in November, the side porch boards replaced in the spring when I found 2 of them had softened. My father visited twice that year and stayed in the guest room and remarked, both times, that the house felt well kept. I thanked him. He did not ask how I was managing the property costs. I did not offer the information. Rohan and Divya had developed a relationship with the Corbin Street house that I can only describe as proprietorial, not because they had any legal claim to it, but because they had never been told they didn't, and because the house occupied a particular position in the family's social calendar that Divya had, over the years, come to manage. Holiday gatherings. Diwali. My grandmother's birthday celebrations. Divya organized these events with genuine competence and considerable attention to detail, and in organizing them she had gradually reorganized the implicit hierarchy of who the house belonged to in the family's understanding. In her accounting, the house was a family property. In the county recorder's accounting, it was not. I became aware of the Christmas planning the way I had become aware of the listing on Priya's Instagram story, by accident, through a forwarded message I was not supposed to receive. My cousin Lakshmi, as I have mentioned, does not always rent a room. She sent me the invitation on a Sunday in early December with a question mark and the addendum. Did you get one too? I had not gotten one. I went to Lakshmi's message and looked at the invitation again.
Divya had sent it.
The event was Christmas Eve dinner at 14 Corbin Street. 11 names in the address line.
Meena absent.
The invitation referenced a wreath that had already been hung. They had apparently been to the house the previous weekend to begin decorating, and a note that the Christmas tree would go up the following Saturday. I sat at my desk for a moment. The winter light outside my Hyde Park apartment was the flat, even gray of a Cincinnati December, and the street below was quiet. I thought about the wreath on the door of my house, which I had not hung, and the Christmas tree that was being planned for the living room of my house, for a gathering I had not been invited to. I thought about my grandmother folding her hands on the kitchen table and saying, "I am not asking for your permission. I am telling you so you know." I pulled up the Hamilton County Recorder's portal. Owner of record, Priya Kavitha Anand. Instrument No 2019-089344. Recorded December 4, 2019. Current as of the title update filed December 9, 2022. I already knew what it said. I looked at it anyway for the same reason you check that a door is locked before you leave, not because you doubt it, but because certainty is worth the 3 seconds it takes to confirm. Then I opened my contacts and found the name of the listing agent. I had become aware of the listing 2 weeks before the invitation incident. A neighbor, a woman named Carol Prescott, who had lived on the block since before my grandmother moved in, and who walked her retriever past the corner lot every morning, had texted me a photograph of a lockbox on the front door handle. The text said, "Priya, is this right? I saw a realtor here this afternoon." I had thanked Carol and told her I would look into it. I had not yet looked into it, because I had been in the middle of a difficult week at the hospital, a Joint Commission compliance review that required 3 consecutive 12-hour days, and left me, by the Friday, in no condition to manage anything beyond the basics. I had noted the lockbox. I had intended to address it Monday. The invitation moved Monday to Sunday. The listing agent's name was Marcus Hawley, at a brokerage called Hartwell Residential in Blue Ash. He had listed the property at $389,000, a reasonable number for a well-maintained craftsman on a corner lot in Northbrook, slightly below what I had informally estimated when I looked at comparables the previous spring. The listing had been live for 11 days. There had been 2 showings. I sent Marcus Hawley a text at 4:47 that Sunday afternoon. I identified myself as the sole owner of record of 14 Corbin Street, Northbrook. I told him I had not authorized the listing and asked him to remove it immediately. I attached a photograph of the recorded deed document showing my name and the instrument number. His response came 14 minutes later. "Ms. Anand, I need to verify this with my clients. Can I call you?" I replied, "The Hamilton County Recorder's portal is public. Instrument no 2019-089344. I'll expect confirmation of the listing removal by end of business tomorrow." He called Francis Osei's office first thing Monday morning. Francis, who had prepared the original deed and retained the file, confirmed everything in a single phone call. The listing was removed from the portal at 8:53 Monday morning. The open house, which had been scheduled for the following Sunday, was cancelled at 9:07. I know these timestamps because Marcus Hawley sent me a confirmation email with both. He was, throughout the entire exchange, professional and efficient, which I noted and appreciated. He had been given incorrect information about the property ownership by his clients. That was not his problem to solve, and he did not make it one. Rohan called me Monday evening at 7:18. I had been expecting the call since approximately 8:54 that morning and had spent the intervening hours at work, managing a discharge backlog that had accumulated over the weekend, attending a department head's meeting, and eating lunch at my desk. I had not spent the intervening hours rehearsing what I would say, because I already knew what I would say, and rehearsal would not have improved it. I answered on the 3rd ring. He said my name. I said his. There was a pause of the kind that precedes a conversation neither person has had before, and then he said, she's very upset." I waited. "She didn't know about the deed," he said. "Neither did I." "I know," I said. Dad didn't know either?"
No.
A longer pause. Outside my window the December evening was fully dark, the streetlights on, a light snow beginning that the forecast had predicted, and which was landing exactly as predicted, small, steady, without drama. "Grandma did this without telling anyone," he said. "She told me," I said. In October 2019. We executed the deed at Francis Osei's office in November. It's been on record since December of that year. Why didn't you say anything? This was the question I had thought most about, not because the answer was complicated, but because it needed to be stated plainly enough to hold. "Because it was already on record," I said. "The county recorder's office doesn't require me to announce it. Grandma made a legal decision with her attorney. She didn't ask me to explain it to anyone, and I didn't." A chair scraped somewhere on his end. He was in the kitchen, I thought. I knew the sound of that kitchen, the tile floor, the particular acoustic of the room. "We were going to use the money from the sale for—" He stopped. "I know," I said. "There was a plan, Priya." "There was an assumption," I said. "The plan needed my signature, and no one asked for it because no one checked whose name was on the deed." He was quiet. The snow outside my window was thickening slightly, the flakes catching the streetlight as they fell. "What are you going to do?" he said.
Keep the house, I said.
Are you? A breath, carefully managed. Are you going to tell Dad? I'm going to have a conversation with Dad, yes, I said. But not tonight. He's going to be. That's between me and Dad, I said. I'll reach out to him this week. Another silence, longer than the ones before it. I heard him shift in whatever he was sitting in. When he spoke again, his voice had lost the pressing quality it had carried for most of the call, and what was left was something quieter, less scripted. She always liked you better, he said. Not with bitterness, with the flat delivery of a person recognizing something they had known for a long time. I did not confirm or deny this. She made a legal decision, I said. She did it correctly, with a good attorney, years before she died. That's what the record reflects.
Yeah, he said.
After a moment. Okay. We said goodbye. I stood at my kitchen window for a moment after the call ended, watching the snow come down in the streetlight outside, small and steady, and without any particular urgency. Then I called Frances Osei and asked her to send a formal ownership confirmation letter to Rohan and my father by certified mail. Not as a threat, as a record. Frances said she would have it out by Wednesday. I thanked her and ended the call and made dinner. My father called Thursday evening, 2 days after he received Frances's letter. His call lasted 41 minutes, which was long for my father, who preferred short conversations and resolved matters quickly when he could. This one did not resolve quickly because it contained something more than the property question. It contained the longer history of the house and his mother's death, and what he had assumed about the estate, and what my grandmother had decided without consulting him, and what all of that meant about the space between what a person knows about their family and what is actually true. I let him talk. My father was not unreasonable. He was a man encountering a significant revision to a picture he had held for 2 years, and the revision was disorienting in the way that all significant revisions are disorienting. He did not accuse me of anything. He did not claim the house. He asked at one point whether I had known what my grandmother was doing and whether I could have told him, and I told him honestly. I had known since October 2019, and I had not told him because my grandmother had not asked me to, and I had understood her reasons. What were her reasons? He asked. I thought about the kitchen table in October 2019 and my grandmother's folded hands and the precision with which she had organized every document in her life. She wanted the house to stay with the person who would keep it, I said. I think she had been watching for a long time to see who that was.
He was quiet for a while.
She was always very deliberate, he said. Yes, I said. I just wish she had told me. I know, I said. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing that resolved anything, and then we said goodbye in the way that families say goodbye when the conversation has done what it could do, and the rest will take longer than a phone call. I held the phone for a moment after the call ended. Then I set it down and finished washing the dishes I had started before he called. The open house listing had been gone for 4 days. The lockbox had been removed from the door handle the same afternoon Marcus Hawley sent his confirmation email. He had arranged it himself, which I thought was professionally conscientious of him. The house was quiet, the wreath still on the door, the Christmas tree that had been planned for the living room unplanted, the 11 invitations answered by people who would not be coming to 14 Corbin Street on Christmas Eve. I drove to Corbin Street the following Saturday. The snow from Monday had stayed on the ground in the shaded parts of the yard, along the north fence line, under the overhang of the side porch. I unlocked the front door with a key my grandmother had given me in 2019, the same week the deed was executed, and I stood in the front hallway in the particular stillness of a house that knows it is being kept. The wreath was a good one, fresh cedar, a simple red ribbon, my grandmother's style more than Divya's. I left it on the door. I spent 3 hours that Saturday going through the rooms, checking the furnace filter, testing the smoke detectors, looking at the side porch boards I had replaced in the spring to see how they were holding. They were holding. I made a list of things for the spring. The gutters on the north side needed attention. The bathroom grout in the upstairs hall wanted resealing. The garden beds along the south fence were due for a refresh. My grandmother had kept this house with the same care she kept her documents, systematically, without drama, because it was worth keeping, and that was sufficient reason. She had understood that the value of a thing is not announced. It is demonstrated, season after season, in the showing up and the maintenance and the records filed on time. I locked the front door behind me at 4 in the afternoon and drove back to Hyde Park through the gray December light, the house behind me with the wreath on the door, the list in my bag, the spring work already half-planned in my head. There is a difference between being invited and belonging. One is given by other people and can be withdrawn. The other is recorded with the county and is not going anywhere. Know the difference. Keep the records. Here's what I keep thinking about. Was it the moment the open house canceled at 9 a.m. or the night Rohan said, "She always liked you better," and neither of us argued? Tell me in the comments which moment landed hardest for you. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and hit the bell. A new story every week. Like if you've ever held something quietly that no one thought to look for. Take care of yourselves.